Hiya, I'm Jasper, and welcome to your video review for Godzilla Minus One. It's a movie starring a bunch of Japanese people, shockingly. This movie apparently was made for only $15 million. And I have no idea how that is possible, because this movie looks absolutely fantastic. Godzilla is on screen at an awesome, like, holy shit, he's so tall, and like, raw, like, all the angles that you could want in both dark lighting as well as big lighting, sometimes underwater, sometimes like pushing through the water, and there's ships and everything else. Like, this movie, I have no idea how they managed it for $15 million, but I am very, very impressed by that, because not only was he involved in a lot of it, but there was like a grand scale to this. Like, buildings would get destroyed, and that looked realistic, and there was enough, like, there was a whole bunch of extras, or like just side, I guess extras technically, but people who had like a couple little speaking lines, or the settings, excellent scale. I don't know how they managed it for $15 million. And one of the things that impressed me about this was that, yeah, that's all well and good, but the story was actually really good as well. Because my problem with a lot of monster movies, or especially Transformers movies, is that I go to see a Transformers movie, or a big creature film movie, to see Transformers beat the shit out of each other, or to see monsters beat the shit out of each other, or to like get, monsters versus human technology type of thing. That's what I go there to see. But for some fucking reason, all the filmmakers seem to be like, oh, you go to these big monster movies or these Transformers movies to see people, right? Like you can see in every other movie that doesn't have Transformers or big giant creatures, yes? No. So I just get so annoyed in so many of the monster films because I don't care about the humans. And this one is about the humans. But they finally got it right, because honestly, like, Godzilla is just the mechanism at which, like, goes through this guy's life. Like, okay, just to clarify, this movie is set like end of World War II, and then it kind of progresses through a few years beyond that, just as like just a timeline thing. So like, it's not set in current day, and it's not set like decades later or whatever. So it's just like 1945 to, like, I don't know, 1950-ish, maybe more like 47. I think it's 47. Yeah, 1947. So couple year period. So there's a couple of little time jumps, but ones that make sense. And it's about this dude who, and you learn this right at the beginning, so I'm not really spoiling anything, but he was a kamikaze pilot, and he didn't kamikaze. So how do you live with yourself in this culture where you're a coward? How do you live with yourself? And how are you able to continue your life knowing that you choked when you shouldn't have, or you made a choice that, in this culture, is cowardice? And Godzilla just happens to be the thing that really brings to a head his, like, having to discover himself and go from there. I don't want to say too much about his journey, whether or not it goes well or goes badly, but this movie is excellent because it's a creature movie, giant creature movie, that has enough of the creature. Like, don't get me wrong, I did like the 2014 Godzilla movie because they didn't, like, show the creature, show Godzilla too much, but I would have liked a little bit more towards the end. And this movie showed Godzilla a whole heck of a lot more, but still in a way where, like I said, this movie is about the dude and his journey, his existence, or whatever, that just happens to involve Godzilla. But when Godzilla's involved, you still get the, like, far away shots and crowd shots and everything else in a really good way. So this movie is fantastic. Almost cried at one point. It's so good. So yeah, the one thing that I will say that was probably just a little bit negative is that I think it's based off of, or inspired by, the original Godzilla look, which is the really, like, the arms that don't really move much, and then the, like, huge lower half is just so much bigger, and how he just kind of plods along like this, because of the limitations of the technology at the time. He just plodded along like that. And he still does that in this one. Yes, his movements are, in terms of the CGI, realistic, but why he would be moving like that is I'm less understanding, especially with the arms like this, as opposed to like, like it. You could argue that like, okay, that's just where the springy muscles or whatever is a natural resting place, but it's a little bit of an odd angle in my opinion. And then the other thing is that his face, shown enough, and excellent CGI, like the face itself is not unbelievable, but it's a little bit odd because the eyes, like there's no expression in the eyes. There's no like frow burrowing or like squinting or anger or whatever. Like when he's plodding along, like you see how my eyes aren't really moving. I mean, even if they sort of are because 3DS, but like there's no change here. That's kind of what it was for Godzilla. And I assume it's because that's how it was in the original like 1950s movie, but in this case, it was a little odd, especially because like, I would just expect like the eyes to dart one way or the other, but they are just always facing forward. So I found that a little bit odd, and there was a couple times where like, his mouth was doing stuff or whatever, and I would have expected a little bit more going on around the eyes, and there wasn't. And again, I think that was intentional based off the original Godzilla movie, and other than looking a little weird, like in terms of like, oh, that's CGI, like it's not like it was like, oh, that looks like CGI. You get what I'm saying? So an odd choice, but not one that made it look like an animatronic or like fuzzy because they couldn't afford the CGI. It was just an interesting choice that I don't know quite ticked it for me because I've never seen the 1950s Godzilla other than like various like, meme type clips. But yeah, I still enjoyed this movie, not having seen the original 1950s. I've seen the 2014 Godzilla, whatever other Godzillas came after that in America. And then the 1995 one was my introduction to Godzilla and that TV show that they had. So I watched that at some point, and that was fun. So yeah, that is really all I have, is that this movie is really good. Oh, it's starring Japanese people, set in Japan in 1950. It's subtitled. Maybe when this movie comes out, or maybe by the time you're watching this, it'll be out on streaming, and you can probably find a dubbed version. My advice, never watch a dubbed movie that's live action, because it's always garbage, because they just, the sound quality is terrible because they mute all the rest of the things. The acting, because they try to shittily match the lip flappy things, never works. It's always garbage. You lose a lot of the feelings behind things. Watch the subtitled version of live action things. Anime, you can totally get away with dubbed. Live action, you cannot. Watch the subtitles. It's still worth it. All right, so that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Bye.